Welcome to Different Paths, Same Directions, a conversation where Black and Brown men speak, who have experienced the foster care system, the juvenile justice system, homeless system, all of the above. The importance of this conversation is really to create a safe space for males to talk about their experiences in the system and how we all can just basically do a better job to, um, kind of really support them and offer resources and provide opportunities to them so that they can excel. And so I am happy to be joined here today by a powerful panelist group. But before we get started, I just wanted to say a little bit about myself. And so if you don't know, my name is Raquel Wilson. I am the proud program manager of the Youth Voices Rising program. I have been with the organization for 3 years. And since then, we have just really just enhanced this program and took it to the next level, really creating and using media and journalism and the power of storytelling to allow a safe space for those who have been impacted by the child welfare system, the juvenile justice system, the homeless system, all of the above, to speak about their experiences openly and authentically, but also be compensated, efficiently for their work and their contributions to the program. And so in addition to the media and storytelling that we do and that we provide here in the program, we also offer workshops to caregivers and social workers. We offer journalism workshops to those who have been impacted by the, foster youth, those who have been impacted by the foster care system, to programs who serve foster youth. We have journalism contributor roles. We have internships. I'm getting ready to launch our second annual back to school drive, and just so many gifts, so many different opportunities that centered around all the experiences that I feel like that I lacked when I was emancipating from the system, and now having the opportunity to be a Raquel for someone that I desperately needed when I was coming out of the system. And so if you would like to stay informed with all of the wonderful and powerful things that we are doing here at the Youth Voices Rising program, we would love for you to join us via our newsletter. We will be dropping the link in the chat. And this is just the most efficient way, besides being on our social media platforms, to stay in touch and up to date with all of the things that we are doing here, all of the writing opportunities that we're continuing to offer, the different workshop opportunities, internship opportunities, etc. And so we really just want to thank you all for being here today and just joining us for this powerful conversation. So at this time, you should see a poll survey pop up on your screen. And this is just so that we can know, where did you hear about this event from, what organization or entity you're representing, whether you're a current or former foster youth, a CASA worker, etc. And so we are very, 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 very just interested, and this helps us understand how we can just go about really actively making sure that these webinars are presented to folks. And even if you can't attend, as long as you register, you'll be able to receive a copy of the recording. So we're just going to allow some time for folks to fill out this. It is just 2 questions, and so it shouldn't take that much time, but we want to give people the time to do that. And then we are going to display the survey results on the screen. All right, so we should see the survey results pop up soon. And so I'm happy to see that we have some adoptive parents and caregivers on our call. I love that we always have social workers and attorneys on the call, where our last webinar of the year is going to be dedicated to social workers and a conversation centered around caregivers and social workers. And so if we want social workers to participate in that conversation. And so if that was something that you'd be interested in participating in, please feel free to fill out our post-evaluation survey. And there's a question on there that you can indicate that you would like to participate in that webinar, and I will personally reach out to you. I see that there are people on here that work and with organizations that serve foster youth, and we're so happy to have you. And others, please introduce yourself in the chat. If these areas did not represent formally what it is that you actually do and the entity that you serve. please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and let us know so that we know next time to add this to the survey, add that column to the survey. And I'm loving that most of the communication is received by email blast. Me, Sarah, and I, and other Youth Voice Rising representatives work really, really hard to ensure that we're always constantly sending out communication and emails. I'm always constantly sending out opportunities to my program besties. And so just thank you all who participated in this this poll survey. And just, again, it helps me, identify how I can just be better as a program manager, helping you guys be able to get these type of conversations into your workspace. And so without further ado, I am so very happy to introduce to you this wise collective of gentlemen. And before I do, I just want to say that, this conversation is really near dear to my heart. This was just something that I just kind of figured out, realized that I wanted to do when I was working on the webinar list for the year last year. And ultimately, this has since become a full project alongside alongside our intern, which we are now going to be doing a Black and Brown Male Coalition. And so I'm really extremely excited to have this group of gentlemen here to speak with you today about their experience in the system and all of the amazing things that they're doing and offer you guys their expertise. And so without further ado, I would love to introduce everyone. And so if you guys can just unmute yourself, say hi or wave, I would greatly appreciate it. So first up, we have Dylan Williams. And so Dylan Williams is a third-year undergraduate attending UCLA, majoring in political science and minoring in philosophy. He aspires to attend law school. At law school afterwards, Dylan became a foster youth at the age of 15. With this experience and now being 19, he is able to pay it forward by being a Foster Media Connections intern to advocate and support foster youth. And so Dylan, I'm super excited to have you. You guys, Dylan has been as an intern for over a year now, and he's getting ready to transition into his second year. And I have been trying to get him to participate in these conversations for a while. And so the perfect opportunity. And Dylan, we're just really, really grateful and elated to have you here today. So thank you so much for joining us. And so next up, we have, and I'm not going to go in order, I'm actually going to order from how we sent out the webinar description. So excuse me and forgive me. And so next up, we have Marquand Teets, and he is currently in process of starting his own nonprofit focusing on youth mental health crisis. His passion is to make sure to never have a child die in the system, especially the way that his brother did. And we're extremely sorry to hear that. Since then, he has taken some classes with Creative Freedom and Youth for youth empowerment projects to learn how to organize professionally and how to create original ideas and get connected to the right people. He is currently working with the Debt Free Justice. He has done other work with Think of Us, and EKC Foundation, Walk of Reliance, Black Lives Matter, Black Panthers, and United Bless. So we want to thank you, Marquand Teets. This is not his first time around the boat. He definitely has participated in some of our past events. And so we definitely want to just thank you for being here today and participating with us, Marquand. And so next up, we have Louis Gasper, who is Louis Gasper, who I call Louis for short, who has worked on reforming the foster care system since he was 13 years old by collaborating on and leading local and national and international projects with CYC, which is California Youth Connection, the Mockingbird Society, Foster Club, Think for Us, Youth Move National, the International Foster Care Alliance, and the National Association of Council for Children. Mr. Gasper currently works as the Judicial Project Coordinator for the Capacity Building Center for States. I'm supporting federal child welfare reform efforts, including race equity capacity building projects within the state. His interdisciplinary approaches and skills for analyzing public policy, reviewing legislation, writing and editing, project management, media monitoring, curation, communication enhancement. His work he's dedicated his work to offer a unique approach to solutions addressing the child welfare reform. And so, Louis, we want to welcome you to the forum forum, and thank you so much for being here with us today. Louis has been here with me since I have started the program. I mean, well, not started the program, but joined the program. And so thank you so much. And so next up, we have Joel Suezo, who is a 22-year-old Hispanic male. He is currently working to get his associate's degree in graphic design while attending Los Angeles City College. Joel is a former foster youth looking to get a career using his artistic skills. Joel is aspiring to become a talented artist and graphic designer. In Joel's free time, he enjoys freehand drawing, painting, graffiti, along with skateboarding when in warm and snowboarding when in cold. Joel is a talented young man looking to display his artistic skills to the world. So Joel, we extremely thank you and welcome you to this webinar forum. Joel has a plethora of articles on our website that you can read along with our other participants. And so we are just happy to have you here to join in on one of our verbal conversations, and so that you can also speak about your experiences and through this way. And so next up, we have Justin Hayden, who National Child Welfare Consultant Justin Hayden is deeply committed to amplifying the voices of youth in foster care, bringing awareness to their struggles, and using his personal experience and expert knowledge to build a system that promotes the welfare and children of families system. Justin began his career in advocacy at the age of 18, as a college student by serving on the local youth advisory board. Justin has been working in the range of municipal, I'm so sorry for messing that word up, governmental and federal sectors for a number of years. He serves as a constituent consultant, division ex-intern, an NYTD reviewer, a foster club alumni, and a youth adult consultant, now currently working to transition into a entrepreneur business in real estate. And so Justin, we'd love to welcome you to this forum, and thank you so much for being here with us today. And we're so happy to have you join us. And so last but certainly not least, we have Ty Bailey. And so as a spokesperson for Kids Save, Ty tirelessly advocates for the well-being of children, ensuring that their voices are heard. Having served as a congregational intern, Ty gained valuable insight into the political landscape and the power of policymaking. As a seasoned sales office manager, Ty has honed his leadership and organizational skills, bringing out the best in teams around him. Currently, Mr. Bailey is making a difference on a global scale. He is actively involved with the nonprofit organization Kids Save in the Ukraine area, dedicated to providing humanitarian aid and support to those in need. Together, he says, we are creating a brighter future for communities and fostering hope where it's needed the most. And so Ty is also one of my first participants that participated in one of the first projects that I did when I came into the Youth Voice program at the time, 3 years ago. And so Ty, just thank you so much for showing up here today. And without further ado, I want to get our conversation started. But before we go into the conversation, we are changing up the way that we are introducing webinars. And so, just for a test run, we want to test out actually allowing the audience to actually be a part of the conversation during the panelist discussion. And so while I will be asking questions to our panelists and engaging in the conversation with them about their experiences, we also have 2 questions that we would like to ask the audience that you can answer in the chat, and we can review it, or you can raise your hand and we can read it off, or you can raise your hand and we will unmute you so that you can answer the question and respond. And so thank you so much. And without further ado, we will be getting started. And so I would like to start with Louis. And so Louis, welcome to the forum. And just thank you again for being here with us today. And so could you please, and I want to ask this question to all of you guys, could you please briefly describe your experience while in the foster care system and your experience being a male from an underrepresented community and what that was like for you?
Well, thanks for opening us up, Raquel, and I appreciate being here today. I think of even being part of this panel, I wondered, if I was the right person or one of the right people to represent it. Largely both being queer, and I think growing into what does it look like to be a male for me was something that was really something that I felt invalidated at times, but also kind of had to find that path in order to really find that validation for myself, as well as being a person of color. Growing up, I didn't know my father's side and of the family, and ultimately grew up mostly with a white family until I was separated and put into foster care around age 10 or 11. From there, I was in a variety of different foster homes and group homes. All the foster homes that I can remember were white, in different counties represented throughout California. And that was something that really also made it both, I think, difficult to connect to pieces of my identity that I wanted to, as far as looking into the culture that I knew that was on my father's side, but didn't have those direct connections to, as well as being able to kind of navigate what did that look like to authentically be myself, even if in the experience of things like microaggressions and things like that within foster homes, that often was the case of having the sort of transracial foster parenting dynamic that is often experienced. Growing up, I was mostly I was mostly in white communities until eventually moving into a group home that was a little bit more diverse within a community as itself. So a lot of it was navigating, how to validate that specific Blackness, really, but also being able to navigate things like bullying, or and also trying to figure out, do I fit in, with the white kids, or do I fit in with the Black kids, or do I not fit in at all, and where do I go at that point, as far as figuring that out while simultaneously figuring out the process of being in foster care and all of the unknowns of that. So I think a lot of it was really just, figuring out, and taking the work to figure out what my identity was, and not always having the most success doing it, because there are so many things that you're figuring out with the system as well, like where am I going to live next, or what are those aspects going to ultimately look like. So I think that it wasn't until I was a teenager and was able to ask those questions, and really also make the distinctions as far as why I thought being able to have those conversations with my social worker about what my needs were, why they were different than, other sort of needs of people on her caseload, and why it was really important to affirm my identity, even if it's something that hadn't been affirmed a lot within the child welfare system prior, other than, on paper. And after that, in college, I was able to join things like the Black Student Union, being able to participate in the National Association of Black Journalists, just really more than the work itself, meaningful work because of the people around me and the people that were able to ultimately be somewhat mentors and guides, as far as, what does it look like to be a Black male, which is something that wasn't really had a lot in my childhood, as far as that mentorship piece, being able to find someone who was who was male and Black and gay and older, someone to be able to look up to, but also learning that my experience wasn't unique, as far as, being in communities that were mostly white, or not necessarily reflective of my skin color and who I am, and being able to meet other people who went through that, and knowing that there was a shared experience, and that also meant that that I could be valid as a Black person and a brown person as well. I think a lot of times too, something I had to navigate was people telling me, as interesting, like foster homes and caregivers, that I wasn't Black, that I was brown. And I think that was a way of being able to sort of separate out, what they wanted me to be, or, kind of their ideas of what I should be, versus, being able to really reckon with who I am. So that was one thing as well that was really just trying to figure out, like, yes, I am brown, but I also am valid in being Black as well, and being able to ultimately know that those were the communities that I wanted to be around in my adulthood and beyond.
Can you, oh, that's in your setting.
Yeah,
You can go.
Oh, okay, appreciate it. Thank you, Louis, for sharing that amazing story. I actually resonate with your story a lot, being half white as well. A lot of times I was separated from my dad's family. I didn't know um the Black culture as much until I became 15. I was separated from my mom. Um, but the funny part is like I kind of was associated with like, the Black culture, like going in a school with minority students, but living in a household is like totally different. And I didn't know how to navigate that at 15 years old, while at the same time dealing with trauma, my emotions, just trying to figure everything out. And I learned a lot though throughout that experience. I learned a lot just to like take your time with everything. You don't need to rush in trying to force your identity. It just comes naturally as time goes on. With the support of family, luckily, I wasn't the major difference is that I wasn't in group homes. I didn't experience that. Luckily, as I mentioned, like my father's like cousin brought me in. But even with that, I feel like there was some type of tension just because of the unknown, not knowing how this actually works. Like the social workers coming in occasionally every month, um, and like what are the next steps? You know what I mean? What are the next steps? Will I ever uh get to see my mom's family again? Would I want to? It's because of the trauma. Um, and that kind of sticks a lot, that kind of sticks a lot. But um, you know, getting the opportunities that, if you're able to get like a good social worker, um, a lot I feel like are improving with the system, and just the awareness that, our needs really do need to be met and emphasized. But at the same time, like being 15, I didn't really know what I wanted, and I'm sure like a lot of you guys feel the same way. Or you might not, you guys might know what you want, and that's good, but um, sometimes our needs aren't met. But if anybody has any questions for me, that'd be great. My story is kind of concise and short, just because of, um, the short span that I was in the foster care system. But um, yeah, if you guys have any questions, that'd be great.
Thank you, Louis and Dylan, for starting us off. Like both of your like stories and experiences really did resonate with me, and I'm sure it did with a lot of other people who are here today. For me, so I entered foster care when I was 14, and then I aged out at 18 when I was going off to college. And throughout the entire 5 years that I was in care, I had nothing but white social workers, white CASAs. The short time that I had therapists, they were also white. 2 out of the 4 placements that I was in were white foster parents, predominantly PUWI schools. And so with all that, like you can tell that it was very difficult trying to navigate through like school and at home life with so many people who didn't really understand like all the needs that I needed besides just having a place to sleep and something to eat. And so that was really difficult. And it was really difficult being at such a young age, being able to voice like what it is that you need, especially when you don't know that you need it. And also like I don't think a lot of people really knew how to provide those things with me or felt they needed to. Once I became an adult, I had found an article from the American Psychological Association, and they had talked about how people tend to view young Black men older than they are, and within doing so, think that they are less innocent and deserve less protection and need have more responsibilities. It's a very interesting read that I do encourage people to read, but after reading that, it made so much sense as a kid why no one really felt the need to help me or like give me things that would have been really beneficial and teach me how to ask for these things. And when they did give me things that I needed, it would only be like a small portion of it and then expect me to go out and find the rest or figure the rest out on my own without realizing maybe I might need someone to actually walk me through this process together. And so it was very difficult in that sense of space. And then I think it took a lot of trial and error once I became an adult and had to go out and figure this out on my own. But I've noticed from a lot of other foster youth who grow up and go off and start their own lives, they tend to start to blossom and figure out who they are and their identity and what they want when they go off to college or start their career. And I think it's something that really should have happened, or the process should have started when we were younger, when we had all of that support. So.
Cool. Hello, everyone. My name's Joel. I can hop in next. Justin, that resonates with me, what you said. I feel like overall within the system, males are often overlooked because, we are males. We are supposed to be, growing when we get older and become adults. We are providers and stuff like that. So I think definitely in the system, a lot of services and resources are provided for like females with families, and overall just males within the system don't get enough guidance. We don't have enough mentors or people that we can look up to. So we definitely are navigating the world blindfolded, and I think that it would be a lot better if there were more male mentors within the system. And being in the foster care, I think it was difficult for me because there was a constant like of having to survive and having to like constantly follow up with your social workers or caregivers and people who are supposed to be supporting you overall. I feel like oftentimes the ball gets dropped and it's like, oh, you're just another case number, or like, I'll open the folder when I get back to the office. And I know it can be difficult for like social workers and counselors and people who overall want to help. So like I often feel that social workers and people who are helping us youth, they are overworked. Social workers can have like 20 cases at a time and only have 30 days, but have to still provide resources for 20 youth. So yeah, I think it was difficult because of that. But so yeah.
All right, I can go ahead and hop in real quick, Ms. Raquel. My name is Ty, and I resonate with all of you guys' story because I think it's all powerful. Just seeing the different experiences that you come across coming from either being in the foster care system when you were a little baby like me at 3 months old, or getting in when you're 14, 15, no matter what age, right? Just everybody has their own experience, and it is able to provide different perspectives, of just where it may be like, let's say Dallas, right? Dallas, Texas, or Orange County, California. But I think one of the biggest things I've seen in comments that there wasn't a lot of representation of our people, of our culture inside of the foster care system. I mean, for me, right? I was born in Dallas, Texas, grew up in the foster care system from there to Jackson, Mississippi, lived with my grandmother for probably 5 or 6 years, came out to California, went right into a group home. And that I always was kind of in a bubble, right? Because I was still young, not really knowing too much of what was going on, not knowing really too much of just, how things are supposed to be in like a family environment, until I came out to California and was living in a group home. And, I would go to school, right? And I think as any foster kid, right, when you go to school, you get certain feelings of just, man, I wish I can do that. Or I wish I had parents for this. Or I wish, I could do a sport, right, and have parents support me in that sport, have parents, pay for my gear or whatever I may need. And that was really the first time I really started to experience the loneliness, right, the pain, and just wishing and hoping that maybe one day I could find a family, right? Because that's all any kid in the foster care system want, right, is a family, somebody to be there through the thick and thin, somebody to be there, help coach them, mentor them, right? Show them, at least the right way to go. Even if you don't follow it, 20 years down the line, right? At least you was able to get that mentorship of just, finances, education, right? How to go out in society. Because the sad part about, the foster care system is that it does a really horrible job in just teaching us on how to live life, right? I mean, for me, right, I really didn't have anybody as a mentor for the majority of me being in the foster care system. So I was doing things as, it still kind of is, because it's 2023, but, wasting money on things that I didn't need to waste money on, right? Or just unnecessarily, getting in trouble just because, right? I was that kid. I was just wanting to get in trouble because I didn't want to be around everybody, right? Because I kind of had my own mental and personal problems of just realizing, for me, school was that thing to escape my reality, right? To escape living in a group home, to escape having to go back and deal with staff or deal with other kids, having to deal with people arguing, bickering. So, that's when I started getting to Air Force ROTC, started doing that a lot. And that kind of helped guide me a little bit. But long story short, I mean, I was able, I do want to add this for the social workers. I've noticed that they are, number one, overworked. Number two, and it's maybe just be the people that I've dealt with, but a lot of them, they care, but they don't care as much as if it was their own kid to a certain extent, right? So there's programs that they know that they have, or they might have had somebody talk about it, right? And they don't relay that to kids like us, right? Kids of color, right? And really just getting us involved in those programs too, right? I mean, for Kids Save, right? I mean, we have an Embrace program, and we're trying to really get more kids of color, right, into the program. Because one thing that I told them, right, is that there's like 2 Black kids. Why is there only 2 Black kids when, there's astronomical numbers of, so many of us, right, who is in the system, right? There should be more than just 1 or 2 Black kids being a part of a program that has a really high rate of number of finding kids family, because they either deem us as problems, right, or they deem us as, not really being fit for a family. And I just think that that's just one of the things, is that we need more representation of our own people. How we can get that, I mean, that's a working matter, right? Getting our people motivated to want to, connect with the children who's part of the foster care system, and to help us out. But that's just a little bit about me. And so there you go.
Yes, and I just want to thank you guys. Like, first of all, just for, because I know we're going to get more into conversation, and some of the questions are not, going to be easy. But just having this space to just really talk freely about your experiences, and then coming from diverse, situations and areas. You guys come from different walks of life, and that's why I titled this, different path, same direction. Because although essentially you guys have been on different paths, ultimately the system puts us in a space, and have put males in a space, Black and brown males in, specifically, to go and end up in the same direction, which is, either incarcerated, dead, or, relying on, governmental services, opportunities, relying on substances, lacking mental health support, et cetera. And so just thank you guys all so very much for, just sharing your experiences so openly and vulnerably. And so to my next question, and it's going to just get better. It's just going to keep just getting better. I feel like I organized them real good this time around. And so what resources, based on your experiences, do you believe Black and brown males lack while being in the system? And what do you think needs to be changed? And what needs do you think need to be met that you didn't get to see when you were in the system, or are in the system, that you would like to see current males in the system be able to experience? And so I want to pass it to Joel first to start us off.
All right, hello everyone. I can start us off. I often think that us Black and brown males are overlooked with a lack of mentors, like I said earlier, because definitely guidance is a key thing, especially just growing up, not knowing what we need to do, not knowing just overall how we are supposed to grow up. And like going back to I never really had like a father figure, or was around my father, so that definitely played you learn most of your things from your father, or just a male role model in general. So I think I would say more services for males with male mentors, and I would say like affordable housing too, because housing is very hard to come by, and especially when you're not making a living wage, or it's, just too expensive, then, how can you have housing? And that's why a lot of people, are homeless. And yeah. And I also think, just basic resources for like education. Um, a lot of times that there's a lot of resources for like females and women and families. And I think males are kind of just left out on the side. And, it's difficult for, males. They're not really looked at as much. And yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, Joel. And so yes, you guys all can feel free to join right in. So I'll pass that same question over to Justin, and then Louis, you can follow up right after him.
Yeah. So a lot of what Joel said, I definitely agree with. I think also just resources that teach and strengthen the idea of developing emotional intelligence. I think that is so needed, especially for young Black and brown men. A lot of us don't know how to pinpoint our emotions that are outside of happiness and anger, don't know how to communicate their needs or say what has triggered me or understand to pinpoint that. And I think that's what leads to people distancing themselves from us, thinking that we're less deserving of help or resources or opportunities because they don't know us enough, or they haven't given us the ability, they haven't given us the chance to be taught or how to understand like this is how I'm feeling and things like that. I definitely agree with like more mentors, but I think it's important that we understand that we do not need just placeholders. We don't need more men just to stand there and also be a part of this big support group and not actually giving us anything. We need people, mentors that are also emotionally intelligent, that aren't going to tell us when we need a space to be vulnerable and to cry, or someone to even hold us or give us a hug, that you just got to suck it up and you got to be able to push through it and push it down and go off and make money and things like that. 'Cause that's not what all of us need in the moments where we really need it. And so having someone that'll allow us to be vulnerable, that'll allow us to be felt like we are protected, someone who will be a champion for us when we do not feel like when we do not have the capacity to be strong on our own. And so I think that is definitely big resource that I think is definitely needed. I think also I think I also saw a question that you're gonna ask a little bit later that kind of ties into the education aspect, but Joel really like hit the nail on the head with it, thinking that housing and education is extremely important, but not only just for young Black men who are in the system, but the people that young Black and brown men grow to have relationships with. I think it's extremely hard to be able to thrive when you're too busy trying to survive, when you're trying to worry about not only yourself, but your parents or your siblings who are in different group homes and what are their. It's really hard to focus on getting education or focusing on a hobby that you love or something that you also want to express interest in when you're trying to figure out, oh, how can I make money now to support myself and my family? And so I think that is one big thing that we tend to have to deal with a lot. We not only want to feel protected, but we also want to protect. And so that never leaves room for us to go off and go see therapists and go learn how to cook or go to ride park. And so I think those are also really big things that should be focused on.
Yeah, I appreciate a lot of what you have to say, Justin, especially about how the people building emotional intelligence and how important it is to have that, as well as the mental health supports. I think that's so important because as Black and brown males, mental health is something that we're not trained or used to accessing the services that we ultimately need, or being able to assess that for ourselves to get that proper sort of help, nor is there that often that encouragement to be able to do so. So I think being able to destigmatize that, especially in communities of color, especially for Black and brown males, is really important. So we can ultimately receive the services that we need to thrive. I also like the point about, I mean, everyone said mentorship is so important, but being able to also break that down as far as, like, what does that look like? Like, is that a peer mentor? Is that someone, who's in your life, informally, informally or formally, but having those people to help you navigate those experiences that are similar to yourself. And also in that same idea of having people who are representative of yourself, I think it's important for us to have more male caregivers as well, who are people who are Black and brown and people of color. Oftentimes when we think about social work and this field, it's really white, but it's also oftentimes there's a lot more women than men. So it's really rare. If I never saw it as far as someone who was really representative of me being in those system level roles. So maybe they were in my life in some way in child and family team meetings, but when it came down to it, there just wasn't that those social workers out there reflective of Black and brown males, but also attorneys or foster parents, and being able to kind of have recruitment processes that really focus on that focus on having communities that are representative of the populations that a jurisdiction serves, but also being able to especially have that focus for males, knowing that oftentimes it is normal to see a single white foster mother, and much less common or potentially supported to see that for like a Black male caregiver. And I think being able to just have support in understanding how to advocate for racially and culturally appropriate needs. So, we have things out there like the Foster Youth Bill of Rights, and many states have it, but, how do you, advocate for yourself, even with those needs from a lens that's really informed from what you need based off of your identity. There are certain pieces of Youth Bill of Rights in certain states that explicitly point out, the need for things like racially and culturally appropriate activities or services, but, being able to just have an idea how to navigate that. And I think also hair and skincare, just because a lot of times that is talked about for Black communities, but I think even more so for Black and brown females. I know sometimes it's like, well, I heard this when I was living in a group home, and we'd have the clothing and needs of like going out and they pay for the $15 barber, and it's like, well, you're a guy, so you can just shave your head. And of course my hair is short today, so maybe it's really reflective of that. But there really wasn't that focus specifically, because of being a guy. I think in order to understand, what did those kind of needs mean as well. So I think oftentimes it can be assumed that, there are some things that we don't need like that really could be helpful a lot.
Yes, thank you so. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Louis. And I'm so happy that you mentioned, the hair and skincare, aspect of it, because that's definitely one of my questions that we're going to be discussing later on, especially from the male perspective. So I'm so happy that you spoke about that, because it's going to be a beautiful segue into the question that we're going to have, soon. And so I definitely want to give welcome Dylan and Ty to the space. Ty next to answer this question before we move on to our audience segment. And so thank you so much to Louis, Justin, and Joelle for participating and sharing their experiences. Ty, you're up next.
Alrighty. No, yeah, I just wanted to say briefly, I love that they touched on the therapy aspect point of all of this, because I at least for me, I think, for a long time, I had that stigma of just, if I'm going to therapy, I'm weak-minded, or I'm weak, or I'm just, I don't need it. I don't need it. I can hold it in, and I can, I can go ahead, brush it off, move on. But then it wasn't until later on, right, and when I started to get with my family, that I started actually to see the effects of not going to therapy was doing for me, right? It'll be small things. Like having my mom not know how to cut my hair, right? Because all of her kids are not white. They got different type of hairs, right? It would trigger a little bit inside of me. It would trigger that emotionalness of just nobody can ever do nothing for me side, right? Where I've been here and can't nobody help me out. They don't know how to do this. They don't know how to do that. What's the purpose of family, right? And then just going to therapy, actually taking the time to go into therapy and just realizing that it's just a culture difference. And there's some things that, as a family, you have to work out right? And that builds into a much bigger thing. From that to, you know, surfing. For a long time, my family would go surfing. I didn't know how to surf. I didn't even know how to swim, right? But then feeling the pressure of, oh, you should get out there, you should do this, you should do this. And me getting frustrated with them, like, dude, I don't know how to do this. I don't want to risk doing it. So, like, can you just stop? Right. And I didn't want to just tell them like that, right? I didn't want to like, can you just stop, and just start yelling and whatever. So having the opportunity to go to therapy and just explaining the situation and kind of just explaining my feelings behind it and maybe how my family felt behind it and just working it out by myself. Eventually I would do family therapy, but for individual therapy, just having that mindset that therapy is not wrong, right? It's honestly everybody needs it because there's stuff going on throughout the day that if you just had somebody to talk to, like, work was stressful, or this person was stressful, or this event was stressful, and having that reliever versus just holding all, everything in. You can only hold a lot of stuff in for so long before you just explode, right? And you don't want to explode at the wrong time or on the wrong person because that could, ruin your character or your reputation or whatever. So I think I just wanted to say, I think, breaking that stigma of just, therapy is for weak-minded people. Therapy, if you go to therapy, something's wrong, something's really wrong with you. But just understanding that everybody needs therapy, whatever it could be, yoga, I mean, whatever it is, but everybody needs therapy to, relate, to relieve their stress, right? To relieve those things that are, hurting them mentally and things like that. So I'm a big advocate for therapy, and I just wanted to speak on that.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that point up of therapy because that's highly important. I think at the time when I first got into the foster care system, like I think someone earlier in the chat asked like how did I deal with the anger? And that's for everybody, every individual to navigate themselves. It's how you mentioned you navigated it. You can navigate it through yoga. For me personally, it's basketball. Um, but I think uh by doing things like bottling up the emotions, like you can isolate yourself from your family. Ironically, you're trying to like go into a foster home, right? Seek that new community, but you might actually, isolate yourself from them, which is very I think that's a known issue, common issue. But aside from that, I think a lot of things that are missing in the system now are like educational resources. I think we did touch on that, but I feel like maybe in schools they need to bring it up more. I feel like a lot of times people are kind of ashamed to mention that they're in the foster care system. They don't want to talk to their friends about what's going on at home, whether it's, it could be domestic violence, abuse that they're getting at home. I think that needs to be kind of put away, put to the side about, feeling embarrassed, ashamed. Um, and just having some type of community, so like community on the school board, something that will actually, like what we're doing right now, this panel right now, it's amazing. I feel like this should be more common in schools. You know, whether it's even elementary school, they should have something, uh outreach, for parents, for somebody, like even though the youth don't know precisely how to articulate their thoughts, their emotions, um, their circumstances. I feel like there should just be something for every age group, because every age group is affected by this, unfortunately. So I think that's something that needs to be brought up.
I just want to say real quick, Mr. to Dylan's point about isolating yourself from your family. I think that is a huge thing. It is, what we all need as foster youth, right? Is a family, right? People to sit there and take care of us. And if something goes wrong, we begin to isolate ourselves, right? Let's say you get in an argument about something, at school, grades, whatever. You begin to isolate yourself, right? You start hiding in your room every day. You don't start engaging with the family, and then at some point, right, the family's like, well, what do I do? Right. And you're like, well, you're not going to do anything because you don't want to say nothing. You just want to be in your own zone. So it starts to create that rift and that divide to where, unfortunately, sometimes in some cases, right, you end up going right back to a group home or living in, some other swapping houses and foster care systems. So I think that's a big thing too, is not isolating ourselves as the kids just because something goes wrong. We just start to isolate ourselves because that begins to destroy the family structure. And, you know, unfortunately, it may lead back to going back to the foster care. So I just wanted to say, I think that was a good point, is that, you know, we sometimes isolate ourselves, and it just begins to become like a rabbit, you know, hamster wheel.
If I can just jump back in, I think y'all are on a really good talking point, and I think that goes back to that developing and teaching young Black and brown men emotional intelligence. I think it's so easy to isolate because you don't know what to say or how to identify what you're feeling. But then also, most of the time, a lot of us have experience when we are able to voice what's going on, how we're feeling. It's usually shut down by people thinking that just because you're talking with a loud voice that you're being aggressive or you're angry, or they're shutting you down because expressing your emotions is something that young boys should not just do. And so like we've learned to like just not say anything at all and just stay in our rooms and things like that. And so giving space to learn and develop emotional intelligence, but also being able to receive that is, I think, extremely important. And I think Dylan and Ty brought up some really good points for that.
Yeah, and honestly, I kind of just feel like I kind of got to just like seg into one of the questions that's a little bit down on my list, because I feel like that you guys all introduced like this wonderful topic that I wanted to kind of discuss later, but I think that this is the most important, like this is a perfect part to ask that question. And so Justin, let me bring it back to you. You know, what advice would you give to the caregivers and to the social workers who have a hard time connecting with those youth who enter into their homes or into their caseloads, who have experienced the trauma, who have the anger issues, or, you know, the abandonment issues, and et cetera? Because I do believe that, you know, when I found my social worker who was my person, that was my person. But it took her to look past the paperwork in order to see me and hear me, and not the paperwork, not the documentation, not this paper trail that followed me, that didn't even display the true, you know, emotions or lack of emotions because of the trauma that I actually dealt with. And so what would be some of you guys' advice to the caregivers and the social workers who have a hard time connecting to those males specifically who have dealt with, you know, a plethora of issues while being in the child welfare system?
Yeah. So before I get into like the advice portion, I also want to take a moment to speak to the women, especially the Black and brown women that are probably in this call. I know that we've been talking about the lack of and the desire to have more male representation in these spaces, but I also want you to know that just because you are a woman or you have a feminine presenting energy, that the work that you're doing is not going unnoticed and that you are still appreciated. I think it's just important that for all of us young people, whether they're young Black men and women, that we all have a diverse amount of perspectives and mindsets in our lives through our development, because that helps us become more well-rounded individuals as we age. But as far as advice goes, I think, especially for young and Black and brown men, allow them the space to go out and do things that they would not normally have access to. I think that is extremely important. Sometimes, especially for ones who don't know how to communicate or know what they want to do, maybe they want to do more other things outside of the norm. Like maybe I know a ton of young Black and brown men who are extremely creative and know how to draw and paint. Give them spaces to go to like an art class or learn how to draw. They don't always have to participate in a contact sport. Maybe they might want to have an opportunity to learn how to swim or something like that, or take them out to go get a pedicure or a manicure and then just see if they are able to talk. Have a space where they can be vulnerable and be able to listen to you. Even some like, I had one time was in another panel and I had a woman she had asked like her foster son is always involved in his video games, never wants to come out of his room. He says he wants to make a career out of that, but I'm not sure. And I told her, she's like, what do I do? I said, lean into that with him. If he says he wants to make that a career, ask him questions. Ask, what does that mean? And then see if he'll give you information. And then that might inspire him to go out and figure out more research, because have a career in game development is more than just playing a game. And so you actually showing interest in something that he wants to do might actually help him understand, maybe this isn't something I want to do forever, but it allowed him the space to figure it out for himself instead of just shutting that down. And so I think just leaning into some things they want to do and then giving them the opportunity to find things outside of the norm and experiencing that with them, I definitely think that can help build a relationship with them.
Um, oh, Ty, if you want to go first, I think you're still muted. Okay. No, no worries. I appreciate that advice, and mine was a little bit following up on the last conversation. But I think and I don't know if this is like a big an advice or just something I believe, but I think, you know, to caregivers out there and social workers and all those people, like, we are not aggressive, or at least as aggressive, you know, as we're often perceived to be. I think that was something where I experienced that throughout, you know, when I was in group homes. You know, people would say, you know, that, you know, if you do one wrong thing, you know, you should be in juvenile hall, or, you know, and often kind of seeing that vision of you, that I didn't see for myself, but you know, other people did. And I think it's important, you know, for us to know, and have those people to let us know that people will sometimes assume that we are, you know, or that we were aggressive, you know, in certain situations. So, you know, being able to position yourself accordingly to know that, but then also being able to, on the caregiver side or social worker side, really break down and explore what you perceive as aggression, you know, because ultimately, you know, it could just be stemming from trauma, or the root cause could be, you know, just emotional distress, or just racism and microaggressions of how you perceive, you know, someone who's tall and black male yelling at you versus someone who might also be yelling, you know, if you have, you know, if they're, you know, presenting in other ways, you know, try to better understand some of those triggers and all the biases that you may have that may affect the way that you perceive young Black people, especially young Black and brown males, to be, because I think that can really be helpful in one, not kind of painting a picture of all these negative situations that that Black and brown youth should be or are going towards, but then also being able to do some work on yourself, so when those situations happen, you're able to handle them right versus just shut them out.
Yeah, to both Louis and Justice's point, you know, I think kind of one of the things that I would say for the phrase is just, you know, uh, allowing for space for the relationship to grow into, right? Just don't pinpoint it into one thing, and this is what it's got to be in order for us to be a family, right? You know, because I think maybe one of the things that especially non-Black, you know, families, one thing I think they don't consider, and but they think about it, but they don't consider, you know, like, oh, we're gonna get the Black kid, but you don't know anything about the culture, right? You don't know anything about what we do as people, right? And so, you know, I I, I think it would be way harder for you to understand us than it would be for us to understand you, because the difference is that we're going straight into your culture, right? We're moving straight into your home, your whole neighborhood white, the grocer's white, the mailman's white, the doctor's white. I mean, everybody's white. I mean, everybody's white, right? Versus us, right? We're the only Black guy you may know or whatever, right? And you know, it's going to take a lot more for you to actually sit there and understand how we are, right? I mean, for me and my family, right? I mean, I didn't have my mom, don't even know who my dad is. So uh, I've always been much more of a mama's boy than a daddy's boy or whatever. But, you know, for me and my dad, we definitely connected, right? I mean, in the beginning, right, he did his little, hey, would you like to try this? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. I mean, did not want to do it, right? Because I wanted to understand my family. So, you know, from building things, looking at cars, right, understanding the mechanical things, and then, you know, getting the time to actually connect with him by, you know, for me it was video games, right? I think a lot of us brothers and stuff, you know, playing Madden, 2K, things like that, right? Being in that, right? That was me, right? So taking the time, and I still clown him every time I play him, like, you know, I'm still better than you. You'll never be able to beat me. Like, this is my culture, man. This is what I do, right? Just taking that time to be able to grow the relationship that way, right? But then also not shutting out whatever they wanted to do, right? Like for me, it was surfing, right? My family surfs, so understanding that it's got to be somewhat of a tit for tat, right? So if I'm going to connect with them playing video games and they want to connect with me playing something else or doing something else, I got to be willing to do that and step outside of my comfort zone and just be willing to try it, right? I might not stick with it forever, right? But just taking the time to understand each other, right? I think that's the biggest thing, is just, it's not going to happen overnight, right? Like, it's not like you put a ham in the oven and then in the morning you wake up, it's ready to go. that's not how it works, right? It's going to take some time. It's going to take some downfalls, some hills to climb. It's going to take a lot of things, but if you stick through it, you press through it, eventually, right, you can really start to create a relationship like me, my family has, that'll never be broken, right? Or that relationship where it's like, you know, I'm glad to be part of the family. I'm not awkward to be part of the family. I enjoy being part of the family, and I'm glad to just call you my family.
Yes, I absolutely just appreciate you guys. Everybody in the chat is saying how they are just absolutely impressed by you all. And I am just like second in and note taking that all of this that's happening right now. I'm with you guys sharing your experiences. And I just want to thank you all. And, you know, and we're going to talk about, you know, why it's important to have safe spaces like this. But later on, but just thank you guys all for just being vulnerable. I want to see if Joel or Dylan wanted to answer the question before I move on, or you guys are okay. Just want to make sure we gave y'all the space to answer the question as well.
Yeah, I could hop in real fast. I'll probably just say, like, going off of what everybody else has already said, is just like, don't give up on the youth. They have their own things that they're going through in their mental state, and they're trying to still figure out themselves. So don't give up on them. Don't force anything on them, and just come to them with open arms, open questions, and just be there for them. I think that's one of the main things that they need, is just support, and being there for them, whether they're thinking something right or wrong, or they done something right or bad. Just overall, just being there with open arms. So yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, Joel. I appreciate that. I was like, let me just make sure. I know it's a lot of you guys, so I want to make sure that we, obviously allow everybody to be able to express, but, because of the time, I want to make sure that we get into all the questions, but not hindering you guys from being able to comment. And just so, again, thank you guys again. And so we talked about, and so right now I want to take a pause from you guys so that I can take into the audience segment, because I think that this is so important. And I recently hosted a workshop dedicated to caregivers and social workers. And I decided to include questions in the workshop, and it just came out so great. And so I think that this would be really, really a great opportunity to also allow some of our audience members to answer some of the questions that we also prepare for them alongside. So I'm going to drop the question in the chat. If you would like to participate, we're going to be taking maybe 2 to 3 responses, depending on how long the responses is. So please, please, please keep them brief so we can get back to our panelist discussion. And we have one more question for you guys. I'm going to write it in the chat. But the question that we have for you all is, how can caregivers, social workers, or program leaders improve the lives of Black and brown males in the child welfare system? And so I'm also going to drop that question in the chat. If you would like to respond in the chat instead of unmuting yourself, please feel free to do so. We would love to keep the conversation going in the chat and having folks respond to you in the chat. And we would love to read your response in the chat, but we would also welcome you to raise your hand and unmute yourself so that we can get your response and hear from you, especially in your line of work. And what do you do, how you believe that we can improve some of the outcomes for male, Black and brown males in the system. And so, Sarah, because I'm on this, the way I'm on, I can't see if anyone is raising their hand or any of the sorts. So could you just let me know, or just simply unmute them if anyone has?
I think I'd be happy to start it off. This is Justin Mallory.
Well, so Justin, I'm going to ask you all the same question, but we want to give the audience time to answer first, and then I'm going to ask you guys the same question just to like piggyback off of some of the things that they said.
Oh, apologies. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. You're doing an amazing job, and thank you so much. Just thank you. And so, I do see that we have Trainee. I hope I said that correctly. Or Train. I hope I said that correctly. And Daphne. I hope I said that correctly. So we're gonna have you guys unmute yourself. Welcome you guys to unmute yourself so that you could answer the question.
Hi, this is Daphne. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, and I have been a social worker for 34 years in 8 different programs. I just want to first say, Raquel, thank you so much for the webinars that Youth Rising gives. I've always found every single one to be so liberating and informative and absolutely wonderful. In regards to the question, I think the most important thing that I have learned over the years with dealing with youth and just people in general is to come into their lives with an open mind, an open heart, and remove any biases or judgments that I may have, because there's really no room for them. I found that in doing this, I'm able to give the most help that I possibly can. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Daphne. Now, I'm not going to be crying on this here webinar this Tuesday afternoon now, but
Well,
I'm
neither am I, but it's the truth.
appreciative of you and your kind words, and you just showing up for us, like, just to hear that this is not your first event that you're participated in, and we would love to have you join us for our social work webinar, our conversation dedicated to social workers. We would love to have you be a part of that, and so please feel free to put your email in the chat or directly respond to me, like in the chat, and I can send you my email. But just thank you so much for being here today and participating in this segment.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Of course.
Hello, my name is Train Hunter.
Hey, Train. I'm sorry I messed it up. I definitely messed it up.
Oh, it's okay. I'm a non-minor dependent in Los Angeles. I work for Children's Law Center, and I represent extended foster care youth, 18 to 21-year-olds. We have a system in California where if you were in care at 18 or in a failed legal guardianship or adoption, you could either transition to extended foster care at 18, or if in a failed legal guardianship or adoption, you could re-enter. So I have about 250 youth, and just kind of off of what the last speaker said, there was something that came to mind when I was in a training that our mental health specialist, Dr. Jervik was saying. It's about for attorneys in particular it's a form of a conflict of interest if one ever puts themselves into it. So going off of what the last speaker said, it's no judgment, and it's not me, it's my client. So for me to ever introduce anything, well, I think it should be this, or I think it should be that, or you should do this, or you should do that, or I don't want to do this because it just, you can't put I into it, I guess is my point. It's all about the youth. It's their life, their case, and it's your business to just do whatever they need. And then guide them, of course, too, within reason. But it's their call. It's their stated interest, as we call in extended foster care. Whether they want to stay in extended foster care or not, it's totally voluntary. And I just think just giving like the space and the place, like the speakers were saying, is just the most important, and just let them express what they need and then just guide them. It's not us, it's the professionals working with you all. It's about you guys.
Yes, thank you. And I'm so grateful that you came to the forum and decided to speak, because, just you being a male in Los Angeles as well, is the most, like, it's about the representation, and we heard it from our panelists today, the importance of having that male mentorship, even though, them having the relationship and the exposure with female therapists and et cetera can also be beneficial. These Black and brown males want to be connected to other Black and brown males that come from similar experiences, that look like them, that come from their same walks of life. And so, Train, thank you so much for coming here today. Thank you so much to Daphne for speaking. We're so grateful. And Train, I definitely would love to connect with you, and because I'm doing a coalition dedicated to Black and brown males, and we're gonna need some mentors for our mentees. So we definitely would love to welcome you and have you be a part of that project. And so I want to read some of the comments in the chat, and then I want to go to one more person that raised their hands. And so we're gonna call on. I think we can just get to. We can do both Marcy and Christina, but I just want to read two of the comments in the chat real fast, and thank Hilda, Glorious, Dixon, Mary Jones, who's always showing up for us. We adore you. Celeste, who is one of our partners at the Catalyst Center, also dedicated to creating unique experiences and opportunities to those who've experienced the child welfare system, Veronica, Rebecca. And so just thank you all so much. But two of the comments that I really want to reflect on. Hilda said, exposure to youth, expose youth to dual credit opportunities as early as allowed. Higher education improves adult outcomes. Early exposure to higher education is beneficial. And I'm so you wrote that because it's literally right on the line with our questioning that we're going to dive back into. And so I really want to just thank you. And I want to shout out Celeste from the Catalyst Center. She says, honoring the experience of Black and brown men in our systems, and even more importantly, in our country. Validating the lived experience is the first step. Educating yourself about the experiences is the next. And so Celeste, just thank you so much for that response, and shout out to everybody who acknowledged or answered the question in the chat, Train and Daphne. I want to welcome Marcy and Christina to answer the question, to give their response briefly before we move and before we go back into the discussion with the panelists. And just thank you all again. And so Marcy, please feel free to join and to unmute yourself and respond to the question that we have in the chat regarding how caregivers and social workers and program leaders can improve the lives of Black and brown males in the child welfare system. And then Christina, you can follow up right after, and then we're going to let Justin close us out.
Hi, first of all, I want to thank all the panelists for participating. I think it takes a certain amount of vulnerability and transparency that most of us don't have. So I commend you, I salute you. I wanted to say, basically, to introduce the children as early as possible to Black and brown men, period. I think often Black and brown men are seen as predators. It's in most of our policies. It's in the way we talk about them. It's the way we have structured foster care. And the more you just meet Black people, especially Black young men, in every form, not just the ones that look like, they're the saints, but just in all forms. So if you don't, as a caregiver, as a social worker, as an attorney, try and see Black and brown men in other spaces. There is no way you can adequately improve their lives in the child welfare system, because if Black young men in America aren't seen, or if they're seen only through a certain lens, then it would be impossible to change how you can provide good care to Black and brown young men and infants and children in the system.
Yeah. No worries about the baby crying in the background, okay?
Sorry about that.
We are a community and a family organization. And unfortunately, my intern, June McKenzie Best, is not here, or she would have definitely been trying to be a part of the conversation as well. And so we just want to thank you so much, even with, handling being a mom and all that you have going on over there. We just appreciate you coming forward and offering your expertise to this question. And just so thank you so much, Marcy. And we hope that you continue to show up to more events that we have dedicated to empowering youth that have experienced the child welfare system. And so lastly, we want to welcome Christina, and then we're going to dive right back into the conversation. So Christina, please unmute yourself and respond to the question the best way you see fit.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christina Fitz, and I also work at the Children's Law Center with Train. And then I just want to thank the panelists, because I feel like this is an amazing panel and your answers have really been on point. And I just would like to contribute that I feel like social workers need a panel like this, or they need to have people with lived experience, especially some of these young men, on their boards, so we can get this type of feedback. I also think that we need to tap into some of these community organizations that do deal with mentorship to young Black males and brown males. And we need to get them more involved in the social welfare system and in the delinquency system, so that we can bridge that gap with mentorship and helping our young boys or our young men thrive in today's society. And then I also think that, when we are looking for mentors to help our young men, that we really need to be mindful, and we really need to make sure that the services and the vision, or the type of mentorship that they are willing to provide is appropriate for the clients as well, because we don't want to link people to services or people who, will say that they're going to do something, but they're not action driven. So I think that's very important. And then I also think that, this conversation, especially dealing with our young Black males and brown males, really needs to be brought to like a higher level, and it needs to be like talked to at Congress. We need to like really like start a board or something, or you guys need to start like a board or something and really push for like better legislation to like really cover these issues of housing and mentorship, and, having more Black and brown foster parents come into the realm to really, help with placement and to help with, building these relationships in the community and things like that. So that's just my opinion. Thank you.
It was so good. It wouldn't have let me unmute myself. Thank you so much, Christina. We so grateful for you. I think that you definitely were like, the universe definitely needed you to go last, because you definitely hit the nail right on the coffin. And we're so grateful for you to offer your expertise to us, and also honor the panelists and invite them and welcome them with words of encouragement. I really agree with you and believe that we need to be in legislation. I'm trying to be outside of the Capitol. So when I say I want to be everywhere that foster youth are, I'm trying to be everywhere that foster youth are. And so just thank you all so much for participating in this. I want to pass it on to Justin to close us out in terms of this part of the audience segment. And then we're going to jump right back into some the last remaining questions. We have about 3 more that is geared towards juvenile justice, education, and the importance of mentorship. And then we're going to have one more question for the audience before we close out. And so just thank you all again so much. I think this is going so well. And I'm just like looking at the time and I'm like, I always try to figure out ways, and everybody always is like, how can I make the webinar better? And they're like, make them longer. And it's like, Lord Jesus, like, there's so many different conversations. So I'm hoping that we can do a part 2 of this conversation as well, to keep, just to make this, keep the representation and the energy flowing. So Justin, please close us out in terms of this question, and how caregivers, social workers, program leaders can help improve the lives of those males who have, Black and brown males specifically, who have experienced the child welfare system.
With pleasure. And thank you to the audience who came in and shared with us. Thank you so much. For me, my advice would really be I think it's important that we learn how to stop handling and managing young Black and brown males and start seeing them as collaborators as it involves their life and their case. I think we're so used to, I think a lot of young Black and brown males, we either get tired of trying to have some sense of control in our already hectic lives. And so we just let everybody else everyone else thinks they know what's best for me, so I just let them do it. Or we have ones that are still actively fighting to have a little bit of sense of control and wanting to lead their life as it is theirs, and then have people tell them, you're too young, you don't know enough, or no, that's not smart. And I think that is extremely damaging to young Black and brown men, any young person in general, but especially young Black and brown men. And so I think it's important that we start kind of seeing it as, I'm pretty sure most of us in this room are kind of like seasoned adults. And so some of us may have had the opportunity to help young people learn how to drive. Kind of see it in that way. When you're first starting to teach someone how to drive, you take them out, you drive first, you tell them, oh, pay attention to what I'm doing, how I'm operating the vehicle. This is how we get from point A to point B safely. And then eventually, once it is time, once you feel like you have given them enough knowledge, you say, okay, fine, you take the wheel, I'll guide, I'll watch you, I'll support you, I'll validate any situation that we get into. You acknowledge, hey, you might hit a curb, you might mess up, but I'm still here with you. And both of our objectives is to get from point A to point B safely and together as a team, as we both operate this same vehicle. And I think that is extremely important, and how we use that type of analogy or mindset when it comes to helping young people navigate their lives through their adolescence into adulthood. I'm here to help teach and guide. When it is your turn to take the wheel, you will have support. I will be able to support it. I might say, hey, you are taking a wrong direction. Maybe let's try to go down this street, or let's pay attention to this stop sign and this stoplight. It might be telling us something. Hey, but at the same time, I am allowing you that space. Now, there might come a time where I might need to tell you to hit the brake and we have to revise. Hey, maybe this road is under construction and we need to go take another route, but I am still here to support you until the day comes where you are able to drive on your own without me. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, everything that you all are saying is making sense, and we're so grateful for you. And I thank you so much for participating in that part. Because although I know that wasn't like necessarily a panelist question, I just, you know, when you first unmuted yourself, I'm like, oh yeah, he definitely wants to answer this. So let me transition him in. And so just thank you so much. So jumping back into our conversation, right? And I want to make sure that the next three questions, we're going to be talking about juvenile justice and incarceration or injustice for that point, education and mentorship. And so for those who have the juvenile justice incarceration experience, explain what you believe needs to be, needs to happen to eliminate the foster care to prison pipeline. Oh, and please feel free. Yes, thank you, Joel.
Yeah, I could share about that. I think more resources need to be provided, and like access to opportunities, especially when they get out of the juvenile systems or like prisons and stuff. Because it's you kind of just getting thrown back out into the world, and people who have come from like difficult backgrounds, or family hardships, or have dealt with like substance abuses and stuff like that. I feel like there's not, like, again, mentorships or like programs or resources that kind of wrap around the youth to help them get back on their feet. So then that's when they end up going back into prison, or involving with these like the difficult situations, or just getting in trouble again and going back to jail. So I think that those type of resources need to be provided for them when they exit, especially. So yeah.
I would just say I'm not too uh, too good in that area, but I would say from my experience, right? I mean, I've had say one time we could run in with like full on having to get on the stand and testify and things like that. For me, and all of that was crazy because it wasn't until afterwards I talked to some people who knew about the course and stuff like that that they had they took advantage of me at the time. I was just, up in, what was it, Lancaster, California, wrong place at the wrong time, around the wrong people. The sheriffs come through, arrested all of us. It took me and other people in. Long story short, I mean, there was a guy who had stole a police officer's gun, right? And I didn't know about it. I didn't even know anything about it. And it wasn't until probably a year later that I had got subpoenaed to go to court. That was my first time ever dealing with that type of thing. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about rights, none of that stuff, because they don't teach you that, right? And they don't teach you how to make sure you have a lawyer present and things like that. But lucky me, I mean, one of the staff of the group home was just like, hey, you should see if there's a lawyer you can call for a free consultation. Just tell them briefly what's going on to see how you can navigate through it. And for me, I just Google searched real quick, called a random lawyer guy, and I mean, I think it was God sent to a certain point because I just started telling him a little bit about what was happening. I didn't know anything. I was at the wrong place at the wrong time, and he was like, what's the judge's name?" And I told him. He was like, "Oh, I just had dinner with that judge 2 days ago." And I was like, "Man, okay, that doesn't mean anything to me because I'm the one in here in the courtroom, right? I'm the one who's in here having to deal with it. Like, you just told me that for what reason?" But then, just having him actually explain to me, "Well, do you have a lawyer present?" I'm like, "No." And he just started telling me different things that they couldn't and couldn't do. And I mean, it was going real fast into my brain because it was in the moment. I didn't know anything. So I was trying to get all the information in at one time. And it was what was crazy was he's like, "I'll go ahead and make a phone call for you." So the court resumed. I got into there. And before I even got on the stand, the judge was like, "Hey, does this young man have representation, right? Does he have legal counsel?" And everybody was like, "No." And that's where I started to learn how evil the prosecution side of the court system is. I mean, the prosecutor didn't care. He's like, who cares, right? And he literally said, he was like, well, I don't know, who cares? I'm here to prosecute whoever did the crime. And it was like, man, I didn't do the crime. I don't know anything about it. And so just seeing how much that prosecutor just wanted to just get, somebody charged, just wanted to get that case solved and put somebody in jail, really opened up my mind of just, man, this is insane how, number one, especially if you have a public defender, right? Everybody's paid from the same person who pays you, right? If you're like that. And so understanding that and understanding that it's all a ring, right? It's not like it's separate, right? They have their own office. No, they're all talking in the hallways. They all discussing, right? They're all, trying to figure out who's going to win this case, who's going to win that case. So really, and I'm in here, but just really, I think one of the biggest things is, if you guys are going to have us part of the foster care system, if we're going to be part of that society, you got to be willing to also tell us our rights as young men, Black and brown young men, of, rights to an attorney, different things like that. So just education of the justice system, right? I think we need a lot more of that in just teaching us on how the justice system work, how there is, rings, and how all public defenders, they all talk to each other, right, with the prosecutors. So just understanding all of that, I think that is a big thing, is just education of the justice system that really needs to be taught to a lot of young men.
Yes, thank you so much, Ty. I believe that answer was so insightful, and I so appreciate it. And I think that you made a very, very great point in terms of ways that the system can be carried on. And sometimes I think that is actually perpetuated. That keeps us like reoccurring and cycling. Like, I don't like to make seem like I'm bashing the system, but I almost kind of feel like that they want to see like our kids in the system. They want to see us they want to see us down. They don't want to see us graduate. They don't want to see us be successful. And then when we do have us, a collective group of, people who were in that underrepresented community, actually inspiring, empowering, it's like, where do you guys come from? It's like, it's a whole bunch of us out here. It's just, there's not a lot of spaces for us to speak, candidly, and have full transparency about what it is that we dealt with. And so just thank you guys so much. And so I want to pass my next question on to Louis, and then we have two more questions, and then we're going to go into the audience segment, and then one more question for the audience, and we're going to close out. And so on educational support, Louis, I want to say, based on your experience, what do you believe needs to be done to ensure that Black and brown males graduate from high school, and not only from high school, but also graduate from college, if that is the route that they're going to go? And please feel free, you guys, that will answer this question, to talk about the importance of going to a trade school or pursuing entrepreneurship. If you think that sometimes those options best serve folks. And so.
Well, thank you for asking the question, and definitely so many great insights, and glad to know all of this panelists now. When thinking about a few things to really help set up Black and brown males for school, one of the things I think about is just making sure that there are the supports to be there as far as literacy and like math literacy, reading literacy. We know that oftentimes, like even where I'm at right now in DC, wards 7 and 8, which are like the most they're the lowest per capita as far as poverty, also have illiteracy rates of 30 to 40% depending on the area. So making sure that there are spaces to normalize that learning and being able to catch up, not just as remedial programs, but also being able to make sure that that's built in, especially because we know that foster youth move around often, and that can lead to missing out on lessons or curriculum. And ultimately, it's not, we can get a spotty education because of it. I think that there was a statistics saying that, we miss on average, a semester or something like that per, for our 4-year experience when you think about all the average transitions. So being able to have an educational plan that is focused around supporting that as well. So both, catching you up, but also making sure that moves and placement moves don't necessarily don't necessarily stop that. I think it's also so important to think about school placement, and thinking about, that there's oftentimes rights as far as where, where you can stay at a previous county, or, do and have it situated where buses or places allow you to do that. And I think it's important to understand the communities that you're going into as far as schools. I know for me, I was like in one school that was like mostly white, another one that was mostly Hispanic, another one, and also the resources that were allocated to these schools were vastly different, and ultimately the education that was offered. So, for example, I remember going from one school that had all AP classes to another school that was underfunded and didn't have those. So there wasn't that opportunity to be able to have that sort of access. And then I think, thinking about things like scholarships as well. There are so many scholarships out there from like the 100 black men, and there's often those in different cities, and programs such as the NAACP that offers scholarships and things like that. So being able to be connected with people like mentors who know about that, but also being able to have social workers and work and people who are knowledgeable of those opportunities that that ultimately we can tap into. So I think that there is really a plethora of things. I think it's also important to think about the community, setting people and setting youth up to be able to have communities that they trust, of teachers and of colleagues, of students that are in their inner circle, and making sure that they feel safe, and that is a space that they're more connected to come to school versus not go to school. And I know that was my situation at least.
No, I totally agree with you. Specifically, education is important for various reasons. Simply because we're able to be aware of the system. We're able to be aware of so many different things that carry on into our actual lives. At first I thought, like, in high school, like, why am I learning this? Like, it's not important. But in actuality, it preps you for the future. It builds that confidence and that knowledge, that skill set that you'll be able to have. You'll be able to tackle any issue you face down the line. And I truly do believe that. And now that, like, I am in college, I'm meeting so many different people from diverse groups, people who may not know about my culture, may not know about the groups I'm associated with, being a philosophy student. And I learn about them. You know what I mean? It's just an amazing way to meet people, network, broaden your ideas, broaden your view of the world. Um, Connecting with just so many different people. Like, for example, I was able to meet FMC through my school. I had no idea about programs like this when I was transitioning into high school to college. So experiences like this really do shape your character, they shape your personality and your knowledge. So I very much recommend it. And speaking about the trade and the entrepreneurship, I'm not too skilled on that, but I know that in 2023, a lot of people are starting to grow interest in that a lot. And I think that if it's something you believe in, you should go and do it. And if you're gonna do it, be mindful about everything that comes with it. Be mindful about why you want to do it. Do you just want to do it because it's a trend? Do you want to do it because you actually believe in something? Is there a certain thing you want to give out to the world, something that will actually change the world, and not just something, because you're seeking this, something that will give you like nothing at all. So yeah, that's what I have on that.
Yeah, I think Louis and Dylan made some amazing points. Louis, especially when you were talking about the importance of possibly developing an education plan, I would definitely love to expand a little bit more on that. I think especially for young Black and brown men who are going off to college, if they plan to go off to college, I think an education plan is extremely important. But I think it should also be more than just about education or academics. I think there should be like some sort of preparation and like understanding of things that they might face or most likely will face when they're in college. I think a good starting point is learning how to manage your family and loved ones before going off to college. so many of us face like this feeling of guilt or this idea that we need to save or push our way through college and go out and get 3 jobs while taking on a full 5-course class semester so you can be able to send money home to your family or take out loans to home to your family. And I think that is extremely detrimental to their success in college. It's why so many of us drop out, so many of us are stressed out, so many of us, our mental health declines, so many of us face thoughts of suicide. And so learning how to understand that the weight is not all on your shoulders, or are figuring out ways to have like conversations with family members who, whether, and I understand they may or may not accept the idea that you can't support them while you're in college. And because some of them have never went, so they don't know what it's like. They think you're probably living your best life, and why can't you send home money to me? And that's not the case. And so like helping them be able to manage those types of conversations and hard moments that might come with family and loved ones is very important. I also think having conversations around understanding that we don't have the same family privilege as most of our classmates and counterparts. A lot of us are going to be there based off of scholarships, things like that. And so we can't do all the things that our friends do. Like we can't go out to parties that could potentially get crashed or by the police or something like that, because a lot of us, at least for me, I was fortunate to be on a campus that allowed us to have like student housing. And if I did not have that during, and luckily they were all year round. So like, luckily I didn't have a place to go like during COVID. And so if I had lost my housing because of COVID, I would not have had anywhere to go. The same for like going out to parties and like getting caught at a party when doing stuff you shouldn't be doing. It's like, if that had been a night where I had gotten arrested or something like that, I would be homeless. And so I think really just educating that we also have to be a little, and it's tough and it sucks, but we have to be a little bit more cautious with the things that we do, because a lot of the opportunities that got us here are the only things that are keeping us here, if that makes sense as well.
Yes. Ty, did you want to add something in?
Oh, yes, man. I just wanted to say that I think one of the biggest things that foster some of the foster care needs is, we have all these departments that's connected to social services. But one thing I noticed that we do not have, and you can just kind of see the mindset of the system, is that, at least to my understanding, there's no department specifically designed for careers and counseling, right? As in the jobs to do in the future, what degrees to go get, right? I think the education of, the education system, no pun intended, but the education of the education system needs to be, upfront to a lot of the foster youth early, right? Because from my experience, only career counseling that I ever got, or the only career teachers I ever got, is from the counselor in high school, and they don't really do anything at all. Like they don't do anything. They just tell you about your GPA and what grades you got and what classes you taking, just to meet the minimum to graduate high school. But they're not really taking that time to actually tell you, you know what, we're going to need cybersecurity analysts in the future, right? And that may intrigue you, right? That may be interesting to you, because for me, right, it wasn't until, and I helped manage portfolios, right? But I didn't know back in the day that I would be there to manage portfolios, because I didn't have that exposure to, this is a career field, right? It wasn't until right before COVID, I started to get a little bit more interested, because I was doing sales, a little bit more interested in selling life insurance and help managing portfolios. And I kind of took the time on my own to go and just research a little bit on what a stock is, right? Like what a 401k is, what that stuff is. And my interest went through the roof. I was like, dude, this is fun, right? I get to see numbers all the time. I get to see money grow. Everybody want to see money grow, but just that mentality kind of set in. I was like, dude, this is awesome. I want to get more into this, but I never had that before. And I think that's just one of the critical things we need, is that there's a department for everything else, but there's not a department for, careers and college counseling specifically for foster youth and what they want to do. Because you don't have to go to Harvard. You don't have to do anything. Like California, you get 2 years free of community college, right? How many foster youth know that? Right? In community college, it's still college, right? But it's a little bit more at a slower pace, or whatever pace you could do, and you can learn. Associate's degree is good and sometimes better, depending on what you're studying, than a bachelor's degree. And that's just one of the changes we're seeing in the workforce, at least for me. is that, not everybody is requiring people to have a bachelor's or a doctor's degree. Because I tell people at the end of the day, yes, that field, but at the end of the day, it's a piece of paper and it can burn in a fire just like anything else, right? It's really what you retain and what you know and what you actually double down on and learn that'll be, great for you in the future. So just having, that counseling for careers in college, I think is very, very needed. And it's not just one of those things that you depend on a high school for. There really needs to be a department in every social services in every state, every city, specifically to help teach kids to do that, right? And so I just wanted to put that out there, that I think there needs to be departments specifically for careers in college.
Yes, thank you guys. Oh my gosh, like the answer just happened. Oh, excuse me, I almost knocked my computer over. The answers have been phenomenal. And I am just really, really elated. We are almost finished. I have one more question that I'm just going to combine. But before we do the last question, I want to turn it over to our audience because I think that is very important for us to have, understanding and, invite and offer each other suggestions on ways that, we can essentially do better. So in the chat, I'm asking everyone that would like to participate, and I'm going to read off some of the responses. I would love to welcome at least one person to the forum to, respond and unmute themselves and respond. But my question is, how does your program specifically, or how do you yourself specifically, what is it that you do to help create a safe space for males to participate openly? And what are ways programs can successfully support male foster youth and incorporate them into their projects? And so if there's at least one person that would like to unmute themselves for the sake of time, we would love to hear your response. And then I can also read off some responses in the chat. All right, so we want to welcome Rebecca Lewis to the forum, and just thank you for raising your hand to speak to answer this question before we pass it back to our panelists. And if you would like to participate as well, I will also read everyone else's response in the chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you to the panelists. I am not yet allowed to do anything in a program to benefit or not benefit young men. I'm considered a mental health peer, and there are not yet opportunities for me to earn reciprocal trust with organizations and employers and agencies to where they want my help. I offer help and they hear that I am asking for help. And so what I am doing is, in the meantime, I am doing a whole lot of listening, a whole lot of megaphone passing, and a whole lot of learning and unlearning. And I am so grateful to have been able to hear your stories this morning. And I wish you well, and I wish you lots of well-being.
Yes, Rebecca, thank you so much, so much. And if you ever would like to connect, I'm always available and open to collaboration and partnerships of all sorts. And we want to just thank you so much for answering that question. And it's unfortunate to hear that, that space hasn't been created. And that's literally the reason why I asked this question to the audience before I pass it back to the panel, because there aren't spaces for, there isn't a lot of spaces for, there are not a lot of programs and projects specifically dedicated to helping provide services to Black and brown males, or just males that have experienced a child welfare, institution in general. And so just thank you so much, Rebecca, for that and your response. I want to read off Christina's response. She says that we provide foster peer advocates that connect with young males who do support groups, and our office is very client friendly. We have books on various topics related to supporting males. We also provide cultural trainings for our staff to help with better engagement with clients. And one of our panelists, and we kind of touched bases on this earlier in terms of like the hair and skincare, the the importance of culture brokers are so important in the system, especially when you have when we're talking about confidence. You know, our experiences being rooted in our confidence, the way we see ourselves, the way we see other folks. You know, all of that kind of stems back to how we identify, and that's our culture, our heritage, the type of foods we like, the way we need our hair combed. And so while I know that, you know, the priority, it seems, has been, you know, given to women, and women who are mothers and parents, there are also males who need that support, that need that encouragement, that need that, you know, sense of honor, ownership. And so just thank everybody, and thank you all so much. And so I want to pass that same question back to our audience, and this is the last question that we have before we close out. And so, how important is it for programs or entities that serve foster youth to ensure that safe spaces are created for males to speak openly about their experiences? And what advice would you give? You know, what last standing piece of advice would you offer to our audience members who participated today? And that can be on the realms of mentorship, education, resources, et cetera. And so I want to pass it over to Joelle, and then welcome you all to answer the final question before we get ready to close out.
Can you repeat the last question? Sorry about that.
Oh yeah, no problem. I was low-key talking fast. I'm sorry. So how important is it for programs or entities that serve foster youth to ensure that safe spaces for Black and brown males, or males in general, can speak openly about their experiences, like the one that we have here today? I mean, what is some last standing advice that you would offer to audience members, you know, or any of the members that are participants that will be rewatching the recording, on better ways that they can, you know, better support and provide resources to their male participants?
I think what we're doing here, this panel, is definitely a great experience and a great opportunity. I would say other organizations and other programs should be doing stuff like this. And I also believe that the way that they can best provide a safe space is, you know, just being open and providing support, and not really forcing anything towards them, a way that they need to talk, and just providing open arms, I believe. And I think any advice that I would give is probably, yeah, just being open overall, and, you know, supporting them as much as they can, and not really forcing anything on them to where they have to be a certain way, or a certain type of figure. Yeah.
For me, I think it's extremely important that we have these programs and these people in these spaces. I think it kind of goes back to what I was kind of saying earlier. Yes, we do need more male representation, more male mentorship, and more programs for young Black and brown males, but we don't necessarily just need placeholder individuals and entities in these spots. Like, yes, it's great if we have more Black and brown males to help serve young Black and brown men, but like, what else can they do? Like, can they also provide that emotional intelligence? Can they also are they able to understand that we're not a monolith, and like there's so many different like identities that we all have within ourselves that also need to be nurtured? Like someone who, like for me, who is Black, gay, who like to do cheer and like to try new foods and like to learn languages and things like that. It's like, am I able to have someone who is able to make connection with me on those types of levels, instead of just, oh, here, like, let's go find like a masculine type of sport to do, or let's just go shoot the breeze and talk in the car. Like so understanding like there's so many different ways to have a diverse program that provides space and opportunity for everyone to be vulnerable and have a safe space and be able to be creative and grow up and help them grow up and become more better, well-rounded individuals.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. Yes, please, Louis. Please, Louis. Yes, yes.
Yeah, and I apologize for waiting. Mine really focuses on the second half for what advice can be offered to social workers and really all systems level professionals. For one, I think being able to look for and recognize racism at all levels. So interpersonally, you know, like inside yourself, what biases exist, or, you know, what biases do you not want to recognize exist, but, you know, may, and being able to do that deeper level thinking on the individual level, you know, what's going on around you that could be racist, you know, or have or be connected to racism, and then being able to think about it on a structural level. So, you know, being able to know that sometimes there might be policies that are upheld or things that are rooted in racism on the department level or beyond, you know, when thinking of child and family services, such as, you know, removals and disproportionality based off of, you know, mandated reporting and other things that ultimately separate more Black and brown families. So being able to kind of recognize how those things play out, and especially on the interpersonal level, the changes that you can make in order to better show up and be informed. I also think being able to not necessarily assume, you know, how people, especially youth, identify, but, you know, when you do know, being able to prompt conversations about race and identity within case planning. So being able to say, you know, like, as a Black youth, you know, how does it make you feel going to a school that's, how does it make you feel considering going to a school that's 90% white? You know, a lot of the questions that you'd already asked within case planning, and doing it with the lens of cultural competence and considerations, but not being prescriptive about it either, or making assumptions. And then being able to know about resources for us. So, you know, resources with mental health, if there's, you know, mental health practitioners that are Black, or, you know, able to specifically focus on LGBTQ plus, like financial, think about like foster parents, or just scholarships, groups with POC people. And the more that you think that, you know, you probably don't need to know about that, if you're, you know, for example, your community isn't reflective of that, the more that you probably do need to know about it, because then the youth who do show up, even if it is just a few percentage of Black or African American or Latino, Hispanic, or Native American, even if you just have a few on your caseload, or at some point, it's even more important to get them those culturally appropriate services.
Yeah, I agree about like balancing like the structural and the interpersonal like requirements, like I guess if you would say it that way. But I think for like the mentorship like standpoint, I believe that it has to be done in a certain way. It's gonna be like, I feel like it's not as easy as like it may seem, and I'm sure like all of us agree on that. Like, what does that even look like? Who would do it? And like, would the state try to regulate those people like so much to make it like a social worker? Like, for example, like there's so many requirements that they have to do. Some of them I feel like almost are kind of like reading off a script, you know, like some of them who aren't necessarily like passionate about it. The ones who are passionate about it, they see foster youth as a person and not another case number. But for like, let's say like a Black or brown mentor, um, hopefully it wouldn't be regulated to the point where it loses all of its meaning. Like it becomes the same thing again. So we kind of like just have to be careful about you know, letting it kind of be an open space, but also obviously being structured to the point where, you know, they know what they're doing. They know how to um reach a child psychologically. Um they know how to deal with, you know, letting the space be open, letting them feel vulnerable, um, letting them build confidence, all of that, but at the same time, you know, just letting the floor be open. So I think that's very important.
Yes, so I would just say, I guess for the first part of the question, I think it's really important for you know, organizations, and I mean just anybody really allowing that space for us to, you know, openly discuss what's going on in the system, especially social workers, because you know, it really allows the social workers to take a step back and realize, I know, LA County, right, DCFS, right, we only do this, but what more can I do to help out the kids that I'm working with, right? I think that's one of the things in regards to that. When it comes to the advice for social workers or anybody. I believe right now, especially nowadays, right, so many things are changing, so many things going on. We must take that extra step to help out our youth, right? Because if we don't do it, then we're going to continue just to sit here and see the system do the same thing and the same thing and the same thing. There's not going to be any difference, right? I know specifically, especially me, I really take that time, whether because I'm originally from Texas, where I was born in Dallas. So taking that time, whenever the program director calls me, hey, Ty, can you come out? I really take the time actually, yeah, I can make it out. And, trying to connect with every kid that's a part of the program that we have, because I want them to know that it's not, I think that's the biggest thing, right? I'm just not anybody making it seem like I know what's going on or I know what's happening, right? I lived it, right? I done it, right? I mean, from 3 months years old all the way up to 18 plus, right? I was in foster care system for a long time. So letting them understand that, even though I'm just one person, but there's plenty of people, as you guys can tell from the panelists, right? And there's plenty of people out there who we're trying our hardest to make sure that there's a difference and to make sure that, change is coming. I've lobbied in DC, right? I've did a lot of things. And so just for the social workers and anybody else who's looking to help out, I think you got to take the time to take the extra step and do some research outside of what your boss is telling you. Oh, this is the services we have, and this is all we have. Going out and researching nonprofits, right? Different organizations, right? Different coalitions. I mean, the biggest thing, NAACP, right? Just going out there and researching and seeing how you can help out more than what your job is offering or more than what right? Just going and, trying to really make the difference because, it's 2023, man. Things are going fast, things are changing every day, and we have to evolve with it, right? We can't sit here and be saying the same remedy that we've been saying 20 years ago. We got to become creative. We got to figure out a way to get more engagement, right? Especially from our own people, right? Black women, Black men, right? Having them actually step up, right? And not just say, well, I want a difference and not make a difference, right? Actually, take the time to get more engagement from everybody. I guess that's the big advice I have is take the extra step and go that extra mile because you never know whose life you can change. You never know, what difference you can make in somebody's life.
Yes. Yes. So just a little confession, you guys. I told Ty to take us to church, and that's exactly what he came and he did, and he did, and he did. So Ty, thank you so much. I just want to take the time out to shout out to Dylan, my YVR intern, Justin, Louie, Joelle, Ty, my program besties. I appreciate you all from the bottom of my heart. It takes a lot, especially as Black and brown males and just males in general, to come, be vulnerable, say your truth, do it proudly and loudly. And who else to be connected with to do that than, with myself and YVR. And so I hope that we continue to get you guys to show up. We're actually going to be introducing an op-ed writing opportunity for the 6 of you to participate so that we can get this experience, in the stories telling. So if there are other young men, Black and brown males, diverse populations that would like to be a part of that writing opportunity, please feel free to email me and I can send you the link to how to apply. But we definitely will be sharing stories on the Black experience and amplifying the voices of foster youth who've have experienced a plethora of different experiences while being under the child welfare institution. And so just thank you all again. I want to shout out our participants that participated in our audience during our audience segment. We're just going to pull up our PowerPoint. And so you should have saw in your chat that we dropped the link for the postal evaluation. Please, 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 please fill this out. If you're watching a recording, please, in your follow-up email, fill this out. This literally lets me know how I can make these conversations better. As you can tell, I stopped talking a lot this time around and really allowed the audience, our panelists, to really have a in tune conversation. We introduced a new segment where we incorporated questions. I want to know what you guys thought about this. And so please fill this out. It really helps me know and identify and learn what I could be doing better, just as a program manager, and as a former foster youth, trying to, creatively and actively create these conversations and open forum discussions. We also have a link on there for social workers who are on this call that would like to participate in our end of the year webinar, where we want to just have a conversation dedicated to social workers, with social workers. And so thank you all again for participating in the post-evaluation. Just some program updates. And so our sister program, Fostering Families Today, that has the magazine newsprint dedicated to providing knowledge and resources and suggestions and advice to caregivers, resource parents, kinship, adoptive parents. There also will be hosting an event dedicated to building, to understanding the importance of building bridges and connections while, between caregivers, social workers, etc. And so please join us for this powerful conversation. They literally have been killing it in their, their webinar discussions. And I'm hoping that they might be also taking it, I'm hoping that next year we will be transitioning into them hosting a conversation once a month as well. Our next event is going to be August 24th. And it's going to be dedicated to the survivor's guilt that foster youth experience. And as a foster youth, I know what it felt like, not wanting to celebrate my highs, even feeling like some things are too good to be true, battling through those different emotions and having that emotional intelligence to see yourself and be proud of yourself and appreciate the good times. And so we're going to be joined with some powerful panelists who will be discussing, what survivor's guilt was like for them and while being in foster care and after foster care, that postpartum fourth trimester experience that I like to talk about in foster care. And so we would love to have you join us. We will also be dropping the link to both of those events in the chat. Something that's really near and dear to my heart that we are literally almost 10 days out. I'm not sure, but if you guys are aware, but I am hosting a Pack to the Future, our second annual Pack to the Future back to school drive dedicated to high school and college bound foster youth. You guys, this event is it's in for LA County foster youth, a community event in LA County, but we're going to be providing services in terms of providing essential dorm items to college students who are in need. You guys, if y'all can see my kitchen and living room area right now, I have computers, I have microwaves, I got crock pots, I got rice cookers, I have a mini fridges. I have all different sorts of stuff that's going to be dedicated and donated to the students who submitted and requested to receive an essential dorm room item. This year, I would love to be able to actually give all three options that the students selected for the drive. And so we are 10 days out. If you would like to donate some supplies, $5 pencils, $5 highlighters, whatever it is that you best see fit, everything is going back into making sure that we can get some computers to these students. We can get their dorm rooms decorated. I have blankets, I have towels. We're interested in connecting with the organization that would like to be a sponsorship or help sponsor some hygiene product bags. Because that was something that I struggled with when I was going to college. I literally went to school with a trash bag, a black trash bag, and a radio that I still have today. It doesn't work, but it's so symbolic. And that's just the experience that I had while I was in college in 2008. And there's so many youth, and with your help and your support, you can help eliminate a challenge that a foster youth could potentially be have to overcome before they even have to even necessarily get there. And we heard today how important it is in terms of, we wanted youth males to graduate from high school and go to college. And so please, if you're in LA County, we would love for you to attend our in-person event. And if you are on this call and you would like to support or be watching this recording, we will strongly appreciate you submitting a donation, to help a foster youth in need. And so thank you guys so much. If you would like to stay in touch with all of the things that we are doing here at the YVR program, please feel free to follow us on our newsletter. But the most important and efficient way I feel like, and outside of our newsletter to stay in touch, is one, being in our queue so that I have your email and send emails, as can see emails to you every time we have something going on, or to follow us on our social media handles, and social media platforms, so that you can also stay informed of all of the great things that we're doing here on YVR. And so again, I just want to thank our panelists today. Shout out to Aya, our intern. Shout out to Sarah, our communication and engagement specialist, who has done an incredible job with helping us, just facilitate and move through the graphics and the presentation and everything. And just so, again, to the gentleman that joined this conversation, I am so grateful and so impressed and proud of you all. And just thank you again for showing up for me, but ultimately showing up for yourself. And so just a little small token that I always like to leave with is a quote that I really, really love to use to all of you guys that are out there serving or in that role of foster youth. Aspire to inspire someone before you expire. We don't know how much time we got left. And so with the time that you got left, go do something great. Go give back to the community. Go stand a helping hand. Go give that olive branch. Go make that time to have that connection. Even regardless of your caseload and all of the things that you have going on in your world. It's okay to apologize for responding 3 weeks later, but don't wait too long to respond, and just take some of the things that you learned today and some of the things that you've learned over the course of our webinars that we've hosted. And just, the world just needs better humans. And if we all wake up every day and strive to be better humans, then we can have more humans, i.e. the youth, thrive. And so again, thank you all again to our panelists, Ty, Louie, Dylan, Justin, Joelle. I appreciate you all so very much. And I am looking forward to being able to continue working with you guys in the future. And hopefully you guys will be a part of our Black and Brown Male Coalition. I know Dylan is going to be a part of it. He actually is the reason why we extended and turned it into a project instead of just letting it be just a webinar conversation. We needed more. And so again, thank you all again today. And shout out to everybody that participated. Please feel free to email me. I'm always open to collaboration. I want to be everywhere that foster youth is. I show up. I don't need to be compensated or any of those things. I'm gonna get my blessings regardless. And this, through this type of work and the advocacy, the passion that I put behind these different projects, the intention that I put behind hosting these different events and opportunities for foster youth. And so, everybody have a great day. Happy Tuesday. And again, aspire to inspire before you expire. God bless everybody. And thank you all for being here with us today.